But we're talking Detroit Lions right now. And I know we had another super chat from one of the regulars.
Ed.
Word to Ed O'Neill.
My dog, Eduardo O'Neill, $4.99. Thank you, dude. He says, I look for us to win in these ways to prepare us for the playoffs, defensive battle, comeback, shootout, last-second win, blowout, also fixed third quarter. All good points, Ed. Like, there were areas, and what Ed just, like, reminded us, like, as awesome as this, as hype as we are about this team, there's still areas they need to fix. As great as their roster is, it's not perfect. There are still there's work to be done, and that's what this time of year is. That's why it's really cool seeing them have these joint practices. It's something Dan Campbell has loved to do since he got here.
Yep.
Have it especially with New York. Like, he likes practicing with New York. Got a good relationship with Dable. It allows them to run and practice whatever they want. Something I'm learning isn't necessarily normal, or at least doesn't happen at every NFL joint practice. Like, hey, Dable, we want to see this look on defense. Can you get your guys to run that so we can practice X, Y, Z? Or I don't know how they're going to practice their special teams, because maybe they don't kick off or they don't play each other in the regular season. Maybe they're going to see some true kick return, kickoffs, true special teams practice in the joint practices. Maybe not preseason on TV for everyone to see, but like the joint practices.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to need to figure out how to get a true look on these new kickoffs.
I feel like you need as much time as possible when you're introducing something as new as this. You need as much time as possible to make sure that your team knows what's going on. We've seen special teams cost this team. I know that we're going to talk a little bit more about a certain aspect of special teams in a little bit here, but I agree with you. Right now, get as much of a look as you can. Make sure the players are getting comfortable with it, because it looks like a different aspect to – obviously it is different, but from a playing standpoint, it does look like a slightly different version of football as it relates to the kickoff.
Yeah, and one of the things that brought up that I love the most, it's those third quarter. That was all season. From the start to the NFC Championship game, third season. It's so puzzling to me, because we talk so highly about these coaches, and to me that is a coaching issue. Something in the locker room, whatever message is being sent or game plan coming out, like it's totally a coaching thing.
You know what? Maybe we could take sometime in the next 3 weeks. I know our schedules are busy, but to just kind of review or go back over like a couple of those third quarters.
Yeah,
I'd like to know like what type of play calls.
Bad.
You know what I mean? Was it running? Did they go vanilla? Were they like, you know what? We have the lead here. We think we have control. Because I just don't sense that Dan Campbell's the type of guy who would just be like, you know what? Let's just ice this thing away, start with the third quarter. But it was so interesting though, because it was one of the most kind of probably consistent negatives that you could find with the Detroit Lions last year.
Yeah.
Imagine if they just did anything in the third quarter in that NFC Championship game. Yeah, anything.
Yeah. Or, kick one of the field goals when they went for on fourth down. There were so many decisions to relive, to get started in the conversation. I want to go around. I want to hear, like, where do you guys stand on Dan Campbell versus Dan Gamble? Like how much of his aggressiveness last year was it too much? Was it too little? You want it to stay the same? KG just perked up in there, but real quick, what do you think?
I want to be able to set the table, because a lot of this was based on personnel, and we thought, hey, we got a stacked special teams unit as it relates to the kickers. We're going to have a kicking competition. We will know if Jake Bates is the guy or not. Now, badly injured, Jake Bates has not had the best of training camps, and now we're in a situation where we're right back appropriately to the question of Dan Campbell versus Dan Gamble. And every time we say that, KG's head perks up. What up, though, KG?
None. I don't know how I became the poster child, just because I just want a little bit of critical thinking sometimes. But let me start by saying Dan Gamble is what got us here. Okay, so I absolutely have no problem with Dan Campbell being who he is. This is who he's shown to be as long as he's been here. So that's fine. I have no problem with that. I think about 2 weeks ago on 97.1, I want to say, he did an interview with one of the hosts, and he even said himself that he would be willing to switch things up if it was the right thing for the team. So I think all of these situations are just situation dependent.
Yeah.
But I expect the man to be smart. He's grown every year as a coach, And if a fourth down is what needs to be converted in order to keep the chains moving, and he needs to do that, then so be it. But I also, I think that if he has a more reliable kicker, then maybe in some of those situations he would opt to kick maybe just a touch more. But I don't expect Dan Campbell to change, and I think that's the misconception that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Keep being who you are, keep doing what got you here, but also just don't always coach out of emotion. I know sometimes it can be hard to do that in the heat of the moment, but just in some of those situations, I just need you to critically think about what exactly you're doing before you do it. That's all. That's it.
I'm glad at the way that Broder posed this, because it has us thinking a little bit more critically about the Detroit Lions. And that's where I do want to ask you the question, KG, because you've been kind of poster child, because you have been the one that's honestly been like, I'm okay with standing on this platform where a lot of other people might be a little uncomfortable, because we said before, we don't know how to act. We've never been here as fans.
Yeah.
But there are legitimate questions. What do you believe Dan Campbell needs to do in terms of taking that next step as a coach and growing? And you kind of touched on some aspect of out of coaching out of emotion versus not.
Yeah, and I think he's got everything else in the bag. Like what he doesn't do well, he has coordinators in place that are able to make up for his deficiency. So I like that about Dan Campbell a lot. He's a leader. He's a motivator. He knows how to get the most out of what he has. But this time around, you have so much more talent now. I remember in 2021 when he was doing this stuff, we were saying, oh, it's only because of the lack of talent. And he has to do this stuff. Now that you have an abundance of talent now, 4 years later, I don't think you need to be as aggressive. Like, still be aggressive, but like I said, just pick and choose your spots. That's all I ask. But Dan Campbell, just continue doing what you're doing. He's ascended every single year. He's gotten better decision making every single year. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll be fine.
Yeah. Like, maybe there's an opportunity where he takes the 3 points when it's a gimme, somewhere it's a gimme, but it also, all right, they're in this part of the field where I see why they're going for it on fourth down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe they take that once in a while, but I think he's going to stay just as aggressive, because I think what goes overlooked a lot, his aggressiveness on fourth down. It's not like it's just an emotional decision every time. I should
not
say.
every time.
Yeah. We can agree that the Dallas Cowboys, the extra or the 2-point conversion from 7 yards out, that was probably a bit emotional.
Which one?
He
had multiple
attempts. 7 yards away. One.
Yeah.
but he's planning this on second down. Like, they're knowing that they're going to go for it on fourth down before they make the third down call.
Yeah.
That's what allows Ben Johnson, Jared Goff, this offense. The playbook is so much wider on third down than most other teams, because they know on 3rd and 9 they can run the ball. Mm-hmm. They're cool getting a 4-5 yard gain, because they'll go up against anyone 4th and 4.
And we saw them get first downs that way, even in 3rd and long from the running back position.
That's the side effect. You got good enough players and a good enough offensive line. You run for it. Like, how many times? There were at least 3 games that I can remember just off the top of my head where they ran 3rd and 10 halfback draws to David Montgomery. I think 2 of them went for a first down. I think one of them was in the Chargers game.
I was so scarred that previous years we were always like, why are the Lions on 3rd and 8 either throwing behind the sticks or lining up and running right into the line?
Because they don't care.
And I was scarred. I got to be honest. I was like, yo, I trust these guys. But when I just saw those lineups on 3rd and longs, I was like, oh my word, what are you doing? And at first I thought it's a little bit of Dan Campbell. Like, are you trying to be smarter than everybody else? But it's like Ben Johnson and Cole, they just are.
They are.
Yeah, they just are. And Chuck Brewer had something for you. He said, at Broder, you have to show the aggressiveness enough that the other team is looking for it and keeping the other team off balance. And that's I think, at the crux of Dan Campbell versus Dan Campbell. It's not that anyone's saying which one should win, but when you're talking about the game sliders, where's that percentage?
Yeah.
What percent are you going to accommodate on both sides? And this back wall, it was not by coincidence. You know what I mean? This is Dan Campbell at that Dallas game when he was going absolutely ham. I thought it was ever appropriate because I thought it emblemized really the foundation of this conversation. Before that game, even if people had some type of conversation about it, I don't think that they had a platform to say, you know what, maybe we need to rethink how they do on these fourth downs.
Yeah. I look back when I was growing up and watching the Detroit Lions, and you see a wide receiver on a 3rd and 9 cut his route before the first down marker. They run 7 yards and he runs his stop or his dig route or whatever. And you're like, why? Why aren't you running? You know right where the first down line is. Like, take one more step and then finish your route. It was like the ultimate incompetence you're watching every single Sunday. But with this Lions team, they do that on purpose. Like, because they know the defense on 3rd and 9. They know where the first down line is. Yep. They're playing it thinking Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to go 10 yards, make his cut back so he's at the first down line. So they're waiting for that 1 extra yard. So if he cuts it short, 6, 7 yards, because they're fine a 4th and 1 or a 4th and 2. That's just like it's
Sam Laporta dragging players just a couple more yards to get across the sticks.
Yeah.
And it's really about knowing and having faith and trust, not in just your personnel, but that they're going to continue to reload every single offseason so you can continue to be there. Not just a bunch of contract year bump players only. I don't got a problem with a contract year bump, but when you know that these players are going to be ones you can continue to depend on, man, that's when you know you can go out there and dial up those types of calls and keep teams kind of, like Chuck alluded to, off balance.